Are you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff, and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAllenRoberts.com. That's Scott with 2 T's, ALANROBERTS.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hire my dad, so he can take me to Disneyland.
You're listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent Talk.
Well, happy Friday evening, folks. There are 2 flies mating on my screen, so if they crawl across the camera lens, you'll know what that is. And I just shooed them off. We don't need more flies in here. Welcome to the program. You're watching my show, the Intrepid radio program, right here on the Odyssey Radio Network. Master Finn, how is the sound tonight? I did not do a soundboard check. It looks like it's set up the same as last night, so I'm hoping we're coming across normal and not too hot. And so welcome to the show, everyone. And you're watching on the Odyssey Radio Network, ODYSY1.com. Come on over, see all the goodness that's Odyssey Radio and the schedule where you can find this show and many others over on all throughout the day at Odyssey Radio. And at the same time, those of you who are here already know this, but anybody catching this anywhere else, you are watching this live stream on my YouTube channel, and that's youtube.com/Mr. Scotty Roberts. I must not be coming across solid enough or impassioned enough because I haven't been censored at all at YouTube. So not that I'm shooting for that. I may be flying under the radar pretty well. So hopefully we're not... I try to be fair when I make even my damning comments. So we'll see what happens with that. Hopefully we'll stay in good standing. And welcome, Master Finn, to the program, my first mate. Good to have you on board. And there is a link that I posted that's back toward the beginning. I'll post it here one more time. That right there is the link over in the chat room to call into the show if you want to contribute to the topic tonight, or if you just want to call in. We had Doug and Field guy at the beginning last night, and that took up almost half the show. And so it was good to have them call in. You're welcome to call in anytime. Hey, Barbie D, welcome to the program tonight. Glad to have you. Carly Sagan, good to see you, Carly. And I see Roger is there as well. Both of you give my greetings to the young Kinsey. Hope everything is going well at home and in your world. I see Brianna Learman, my neighbor. Her husband, John, just brought over some soup that he made, some homemade soup, an Italian soup of some kind. Man, was that good. I already downed one of those containers, and if Rainey didn't know it was there, I would have downed that one too, or eventually. So, who do we have here? Add her to the stream. Brianna, good to see you. How you doing over there, homework girl? John, good to see you as well. I gotta turn my sound up. I'm not hearing you. Oh, and there's Haley. Good to see you, Haley. You're on radio now. Thousands of people watching you somewhere. I've got a little weak connection with you guys. There, I can hear you. Now I see you.
Oh, hang on.
How you doing, Bree? Good soup, by the way. I know John made it, but that was excellent. So We got a little choppy connection with you tonight. I don't know if that's over on my end. There's Harley. Hi, Harley.
Look at Scotty's here. Look at Scotty's here.
Hey, Harley. How you doing?
Oh,
folks,
no.
those are my neighbors, soon to be our friends at a distance when we move 12, 15 miles from here. Oh, I thought Rainey was walking up behind me here. He came into the room as well. Hi. I didn't quite hear what you said, but nice to have you on the show.
Say hi, Scotty.
Happy Friday night to you. How come you're not in bed?
She's about to go get in bed right now.
I see. She looks like she's zoning.
She's watching PJ Masks.
There you go. Well, it's good to have you on. You two should stray over here after the show tonight and have some good conversation. You don't have school tomorrow, so there you go.
No, I don't. I finished all my homework for this week.
Yay, good for you. Gold star on Bree's chart at home. She's finished her homework. So, Rainey's here. She's all freshly bathed, but she's over at her computer. And here comes Ellery to join us. You can say hi to Harley if you'd like. All in the family show here tonight.
Hi, Haley. Hi, Ellery.
There you go. So these are the kids that play together during the day. And usually the Learman children are already sound asleep by now. So, kind of. Okay. Well, it's good to see you, girls.
Hi, wait.
No, goodbye.
I am going to my Tuesday.
She squeezed it in anyway.
Yeah.
It's all right. Matt Finn's kids are sleeping already. Bye, Haley.
Practice.
Yeah, Rowan went to cheer practice tonight.
So did I.
So Ellery did too. Sorry, I meant Ellery. So I forget their names after a while. So, hey, Haley.
Really, get your finger out your nose.
And by the way, yes, it is. It is Barbie D's birthday today. I didn't forget that as I was saying hi. I just didn't say it yet. So happy birthday, Barbie D, over there in the chat room. And for those of you just joining us, I know a lot of you sit out in the wings and you watch the show, but you don't come into the chat room. You are welcome to come into the chat room and say hi to everybody. See, Brianna is just showing you very clearly how easy it is to get into the chat room or onto and you can call in. So there you go. All right.
I'm in my hot press outfit.
Your what outfit?
Hot Mess Express.
Oh, your Hot Mess Express, your trailer trash outfit. There you go. Yep. Nice.
I have camo on.
Oh, look at that. What is that? Like a camo, what do they call those jammies? The onesie, not the onesies, but the big zip up ones you can get into. I can't remember what they're called. But you got a candy one. Let's see. So you going hunting tonight? So maybe she says. Hey, Susie Q, welcome to the show. Good to see you as well. Glad that you working from the phone. I don't know how long this is going to last because the phone's almost dead. Computer refuses to work. So, all right, Bree, good to see you. You guys come on over later. All right.
Sounds good.
Talk to you later. Thanks for stopping in, launching the show in style, in camo style. See you later. All right. And there were my neighbors, John and Bree and their kids. And here is my small child, Ellery. How you doing? How was cheer practice tonight?
They know me.
I know they know you. How was cheer practice tonight? Fine. Okay, well, good. Well, thanks for stopping in. Why don't you go out with everybody else? We're going to get this show rolling. So, folks, what you get with my show, you also get the family. That's just the way it is. They're my staff. So, go get Daddy a bottle of water out of the small fridge in the garage, would you please? I would really appreciate that.
I'm leaving.
Okay, see you. You can come back if you bring water. And folks, I hope you are having a good Friday evening.
I'm back.
Yeah, bye. Bye. Now you're gone again. Always the family, says Brianna. Okay, don't be obnoxious. Go get me some water, please. If you would, please, get me a bottle of water. And let's see how long that takes. I should offer money, but nah, I won't. So, how is everybody else's Friday? I hope your Friday evening is going well. I hope you have the chill enjoy the topic as we go on and we carry on the topic from last night. I think it's going to be kind of an interesting one. It involves digging a bit into Freud and Jung, Carl Jung, and who were contemporaries and actually worked together for a while. The fathers of modern psychology. And there's some very interesting things to say about mythology and magic as it relates to the Jesus story. I've also got something else I want to talk about, and that's the truth behind the Jesus myth. And it's the ancient origins of the often used language.
Hi.
And there's some of this that we want to get into a little bit tonight. Thank you. Did you bring the water?
No.
Okay, bye.
Here.
So thank you. I knew she had that behind her. All right, Ellie, I'm going to get into doing the show now. So I love you,
Give
my
me
sweetie.
that water back.
No, that was for being able to come on again. So I'm going to send you on your way, and you're going to demonstrate to these people what good parenting you have by doing what Dad asked you to do. So bye. Mwah. I love you. Go, Beavis. See you later. Bye. Obnoxious little bird. So, where was I? There you go. You can see how it goes around here. So, Brianna says, I'll come and sit on you, Ellery. Oh, she's already gone. Good. And I did a paper on them. You did. I can send our PowerPoint to you. I got to see that. So that'll be very good. So everybody, welcome. Those of you who I didn't say welcome to, it's because I missed you and got interrupted by the small child. And I welcome you to the program tonight, and I'm glad that you're here. And there's lots of things to continue. Yes, Matt Finn. Moving right along. Exactly. And for Freud and Jung. That's fantastic. I want to see that one, Brianna. And so I'm looking at some of your comments. That's how I ruin the chords, says Susie Q. Good weekend, Brianna, good weekend, Brianna and John. Is that a yogurt parfait? Asked Roger Rabbit. No, she wouldn't eat anything half as healthy as the yogurt parfait when it comes to ice cream. Though I did buy the strawberry fruit bars, the all natural ones. Those are pretty good. I had one of those today myself. And it's trying to get them. That was the only thing unopened in the freezer. So, they like candy, chocolate, sugar stuff. You just can't eat that stuff. And boy, I felt like I was coming in very powerful, and I'm not distracted. I'm just blown off course here. So let's get this rolling in style, because I want to get into the content for tonight's show, and I want to get your feedback on this. Remember, none of this stuff that I'm talking about in these series that have anything to do with talking about the historical Jesus or the lack of evidence of a historical Jesus or things that might de-elevate, would they be devilate, Jesus. I'm not trying to dissuade anybody from believing what they believe with their faith. These are just research and examinations of this character. And when we're getting into the Harry Potter, the Jesus Potter, Harry Christ series, this is all about showing how the literary Jesus, that Harry Potter became an archetype. Well, we're at least examining the two different things that show that one of the most celebrated characters in literature, Harry Potter, can be shown to be a Christ type. Hey, Rainey, come over and say hi. You haven't said hi all week, and it's
Eating
Friday
dinner. I'm
already.
eating dinner.
She's eating
I don't even know what
dinner.
I look like because my makeup's smeared
You
everywhere.
look absolutely stunning.
I took
beautiful.
a hot bath in Epsom salt.
She did. I got to go upstairs and experience the rainy soup.
And stare at me like
And-
some creepy old man.
And stare at her like some creepy old man who's not really just her husband.
Well, good
And,
evening, everybody.
And no, we sat and talked about business and junk, and I got to experience the steam rising off of Rainy's bath.
We talked
so-
about Starlink internet.
Starlink internet and different over in Somerset where we're moving, just 12 miles from here. They don't have the same internet, and it's closer to the city, but they have less internet companies over
They
there.
have one internet company.
One internet company that services, unless you go with like Starlink, which is Tesla, Elon Musk's company. You could do that, but that's satellite. The one thing about satellite I've heard is that you get the big satellite dish, you put it up, and you get hooked up. You have a rainstorm or a snowstorm or anything, it's out because it can't see the sky. So we're going to get that all hooked up, and we want to get that hooked up so we have a smooth transition over to the new place, and which we're going to be able to start moving things over this Sunday.
Sunday.
So that's a good thing. She said we could at least get into the garage by Sunday and maybe even the rest of the house. And so we can start moving things over. We'll be moving all next week. So if anybody wants to come over, help us move, that'll be fantastic.
Yeah.
So we're going to do it bit by bit, not just one big day where you get everybody together for 3 hours. Although that'd be nice. We do have one of those days coming up. But hopefully we get a lot of the minutia out of the way ahead of time. So let's see.
Brianna asked, what am I eating?
What are you eating?
I'm eating, I don't know what it is, cornucopia soup.
Oh,
I don't know what the name of it is.
yes. It's the soup that John made. And so John brought over, as I mentioned at the very beginning, John brought over some soup for us.
Yeah. It's delicious.
And it's delicious. And she's eating her soup now.
Mm.
I already downed mine. So it was good stuff. And so Domingo, says Scott Allen. Well, Domingo to you as well, brother. I have no idea what that means. It's Zuppa Toscano, says Brianna. That's the soup. Zuppa Toscana. And John said it's the same soup they make at Olive Garden. And only his is better. And it is very good. What do you guys all think about soups and stuff? I used to, and I want to get back into doing this, making soups and stews. I love it, especially in the fall and the winter. And I make a killer clam chowder, New England style, and very good lamb stew. Rainey makes a great chili and a great chicken soup she does. I like to do a potato dill soup. Which is really good, and it's a creamy soup where you mash in all the potatoes as it's cooking, and you add the sour creams and the cream cheese and the dill and the onions and all of that stuff.
And I do two different chickens. I got the sick chicken soup.
Sick chicken? Oh, for
When we're
just
sick.
chicken soup?
When
Yeah.
we're sick, it's got all the good stuff in it, all the good herbs.
Yeah.
And then I do the wild rice.
And the wild rice soup.
But we did
You
skip
also
that
do
one
the
past.
dumplings too. So
Yeah, I can't remember what I used for dumplings that one time, and they haven't quite been the same.
and yeah, I'm not big. I love wild rice soup, but our wild rice soup always, if she makes a big vat of it by day 2 and 3, whatever's left, it just gets sludgy after a while, and you got to go, okay, I've had enough. But there's some soups I could eat for days. If you make a big, not stew pot, what's the word I'm looking for? The
Crock pot.
no, the big tall stock pot. I was just talking about it with John. So, hey, Elderberry, welcome to the show tonight. Good to have you. Dave Potter, Uncle Dave, is here. How you doing, brother? I'm sure Dave has some good recipes.
Yeah, he does.
I saw a book once on Native American recipes, authentic Native American recipes. And I didn't pick it up, and that was years ago, and I wish I had. But I'm sure it's available. You can go on Amazon and probably get it.
Mhm.
But I'd like to find a good buffalo stew of some kind to make and see how that would turn out. Hey, Delaney Pearl Jones. Good to see you. And who else we got?
We got Barbara D asking, no, my chili is not spicy because kids.
That's right. That's right. Kids won't eat it if it's spicy. So Rainey's got to make non-spicy chili. I do a pretty good chili. I haven't done it for a long time. I dubbed myself the chili master at one point, but this was long before I knew Rainey. So Minestrone, says Brianna. Oh, Brianna, we shall be over to check in on you while you're cooking your minestrone soup. Same Olive Garden recipes. Fantastic. I love minestrone soup, by the way. Make an extra pot. Let's see. Elderberry's made ground buffalo stew. You'll have to send me. Do you have your own recipe, Elderberry? I'd love to see how you make yours. Potato with celery and a bit of bacon, says Susie Q. The one I made was, admittedly, it was a recipe my ex-wife used, but it was a good enough soup that I thought, I'll keep making it. And it gets really mashy and very creamy soup. And it's got the little chunks from the mash. It's got the little chunks from the stuff you add to it. And it's actually very, very good. And it's got a dill flavoring that you put into it, spice. Brianna said I accidentally ordered 2 packages of zucchini, so I have 6 zucchinis. Yum zucchini.
Gluten-free zucchini bread, please.
Delaney puts sugar in her chili and no beans and no tomatoes.
Oh, I love the tomatoes. That's
Yum.
the best
I like
part.
the tomatoes. Rainey taught me, for all the things I, of course, know already, all my vast knowledge. She taught me when you do tomatoes, please boil them first, enough to soften, and peel off the skin. Then dice them up and throw them in. So that'll be good. Brianna's making a big pot tomorrow. That'll be good. Elderberry makes it just like Irish stew, but leave it soup. See, now I like both. I like soups, Elderberry, but I really like stews. And you know when I like them the most? And those of you from more of the South and more of the warmer climes here in the show, when you're up here, excuse Rainey.
It's the yeast in the
Yeah, that's got to be it. You're too cute. You are cute. You obnoxious little thing. It looks like I'm having feed problems on my internet. I'm not sure what it is. I just saw myself go in slow motion across the screen. So Doug Stack, zucchini spears with Parmesan cheese baked in the oven. Yum. You know what I got to liking when I became an adult was squash.
Daddy, taste that.
Will you taste
No,
that?
no thanks. I don't want to
She
taste
wants
it.
to know if it tastes weird. She can't figure it out. I don't have
Can't
taste
you
buds.
taste it?
Not for that.
Why would it taste weird?
Oh
What's it
no,
taste
I
like?
ate.
You ever notice that? People, they'll drink something, they go, that's disgusting. Here, taste it. And it's like, why would I want to taste your disgusting thing?
I just ate something. I want to know if it's just the taste of it. Does it
Tastes like apple juice.
It tastes like fish.
Juicy
What do you
juice.
mean juice
No,
box?
it tastes just like apple juice.
Are you eating kippers?
So she might be eating a can of kippers out there, which is, I kind of like that our kids do that. They won't eat the salmon that Rainey caught and brought home. Rainey made salmon last night, a big salmon. Kids won't eat it. But you give them a can of kippers or a can of fish of some kind, crack it open, they'll eat it. So all the kids seem to like that.
Well,
And-
Finn doesn't.
Brianna said, I'm sorry, I forgot to get gluten-free. Way to go, Slick.
That's okay. I'll just sit here and watch everybody
She'll just
else
watch
eat.
us eat. We'll give her some gluten-free bread, and she can eat dry gluten-free bread while we eat the fantastic minestrone soup. But I was saying to Elderberry, I like soups, but I really like stews, and I really like them in the fall. When it starts to get cool up here, you get that late October and that Novembrine hint to everything. The leaves are all off the trees and they're crunching under your feet, and it's cool. It's sweater weather and light jacket weather. And that's the great time of year. And then, of course, in the dead of winter, traditionally made the potato dill soup during Christmas time. And that's always good at that time. Well, you know what else I like at Christmas? Not that this is a cooking show, but a very simplistic meatball recipe. I like them. My kids all liked them. My older kids liked it. It was a tradition we did, and you did up meatballs, and you cooked them all up, and then you put them in the crock pot, and you added, the Heinz chili sauce. It comes in the glass bottle. I think it's an octagonal bottle, the tall, skinny bottles. You put in 1 or 2 bottles of that, and you put in a jar of Welch's grape jelly. And you mix that all up, and you let that simmer for a few hours. That makes some great meatballs. Barbie D, split pea and ham hock soup. Outstanding.
I like lentil.
I like lentil. Rainey makes a great lentil soup.
Straight out of the can.
Yep. John said he was telling me just a little while ago, Bree, that he's not a big fan of soups, but he made a good soup tonight.
Yeah. It's delicious.
So that was good. And so Dave Potter Uncle Dave's there. He said, I'm eating squash right now.
Yum.
I like squash. You cut it in half and you put it in the oven, and just butter and salt and a little pepper. I don't know what you might do to it, Dave, being a gourmet chef. No, squash is fantastic.
No, you'll like it when you get older.
And you will.
Mm-hmm.
You'll like it when you get older.
No, I won't.
And so, yeah, there you go. There's our soup talk for tonight. Intrepid Radio's Soup Talk with Scotty and Rainey. So maybe on Sunday, come and we'll talk a little bit about more of your recipes and things like that. So,
it is a rock necklace.
yeah, Rainey's got my Biblical Archaeology magazine, which came in today's mail. And she's looking at prehistoric jewelry. It's rock jewelry. Look at that.
Yes.
Look at that.
Baltic amber.
This is the, by the way, this is the magazine from the Biblical Archaeology Society, BAS. And she was just looking at this article on prehistoric perfection of jewelry that they would make. So very cool.
Yeah, it's pretty.
So why don't we take a shot at getting into our topic tonight, since we're halfway through the show?
I'm going to head out of here then.
Why don't you, baby?
Yeah. I might go sit at my computer and look up some stuff.
Okay.
But...
Bye. I love you.
Bye.
Bye,
Good
little
night,
Tiny.
everybody.
I love you.
Say good night, everybody.
Tell everybody good night.
Don't say
Or
bye.
don't. We don't need you to say goodbye. And
Diarrhea and poo.
it's such a rebel.
Pee.
Okay.
That's enough. Go up.
Thank
I'll be
you.
out in a
Bye.
couple minutes.
Let's do shots, said Scott Allen. Tonight? That'd be dangerous tonight. Here, water. Spring water. Cheers. Ice Mountain. I like it when it's so cold it's almost got ice forming on it. So, yeah, you're right about that, Matt Finn. He's talking about Ellery Rainey. He says, what a rascal.
Yeah,
She
I'm
is.
right here.
I'm in the room, she says. So, yeah, bye. Bye now. I'm all done with you. I've used you to show people that I have a happy family. Now you can go. Scram, Sam. So,
My name is not Sam.
it's a euphemism. No, not a euphemism. It's a metaphor or something. Figurative.
I don't need you.
So, here we go. Let's kind of launch into this topic. And the topic that we're on, of course, is Jesus, Potter, Harry, Christ. And we have been going through a section that's all about the historical controversy behind the historical existence of Jesus. Do you know that there are some people that don't even believe that he existed in a historical way? That he was a totally fictional character. And there are others who believe that he lived, was a rabbi, and a country itinerary rabbi, small time, and he founded a movement because his followers built him up into something greater than he was. And then, of course, you've got the full other end of the spectrum, which believes he was the Son of God. And so you can probably see the flies. They're landing. We've got more flies in the house almost than we have outside. So it starts to get it's getting really old.
You should see the size of
the
toad outside. I almost stepped on.
Huge toad sitting on our front porch. Yeah, I pointed him out when you first came out. He's out there feasting away. When the sun goes down, the flies all settle on the rafters of the metal rafters of the roof overhanging the patio. Just go out there with a fly swatter, crack, 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 crack for 20 minutes, kill 300 of them. They sit there in groups of 5 and 6, and you kill them. Next morning, they're all over the place again. I mean, there's millions of them, and they're all attracted to my front patio. So we ended last night with this quote. It's a private edition of lectures that were put out by the Egyptologist Gerald Macy. And he was the author of The Gnostic and Historic Christianity and Other Works. And he compared Jesus' biography with Egyptian mythology. He was one of the first to do that. And once having made this identification, he goes on to conclude that the figure of Jesus is completely mythological and could never have been historical. He said in a private edition of his lectures that were published at the turn of the 20th century, late 1900s, and the late 1800s, he said, nothing is more certain, according to honest evidence, than that the Christian scheme of redemption is founded on a fable misinterpreted, that the prophecy of fulfillment was solely astronomical, and the coming one, in capital C, capital O, the coming one as the Christ, who came in the end of an age, or of the world, was but a metaphorical figure, a type of time from the first, which never could take form in historic personality any more than time in person could come out of a clock case when the hour strikes. That no Jesus could become a Nazarene by being born at or taken to Nazareth, and that the history in our Gospels is from the beginning to the end the identifiable story of the sun god, S-U-N, the sun in the sky, the sun god from Egyptian mythology, and the Gnostic Christ who never could be made flesh. And then John McKinnon Robertson, he lived from the 1850s to the 1930s. He wrote several books in his lifetime about the mythical Jesus, who he identified as the solar deity of a Jewish cult, based on the Jewish cult being Christianity, based on the evidence that everything found in the Gospels can be paralleled to pagan mythology, and that Paul speaks of is of a speechless sacrifice rather than a person of action and teaching. Robertson concluded that Jesus was a composite of pagan myths. He is perhaps the most famous for his book Pagan Christs. Say that, the plural of Christ. Pagan Christs, Studies in Comparative Theology, which was published in 1903. And also published in 1903 was G.R.S. Mead's Did Jesus Live 100 BC, which finds a Talmudic basis for the Jesus of the Gospels. And in 1906, Albert Schweitzer published The Quest of the Historical Jesus, a classic work of biblical historical criticism. Thomas Whitaker, in The Origins of Christianity, in 1904, argued that Jesus may not be an entirely fictional person, yet the gospel stories are almost wholly mythical. These texts influenced Arthur Drew's The Christ Myth in 1909, which synthesized and strengthened many of the earlier arguments, and W.B. Smith's Ecce Deus, that earned a full review in the New York Times on August 13th of 1911. A little later, we find Edward Carpenter's Pagan and Christian Creeds in 1920, and Jesus of Nazareth, Myth or History by Maurice Gugel in 1926. According to Gugel, he said, Jesus must then have been at the beginning the God of a mystery. And at the time of Paul, neither the God nor the mystery had become historical. They were to become so in the period to follow the created age, when it would be no longer possible to understand the high spirituality which had inspired the primitive faith, and when the celestial drama upon which Christianity of the first generation had lived had been transported to earth. So, after this century of debate over the historical Jesus, by the beginning of the 20th century, it was generally conceded that Jesus, even if he existed, was virtually unknowable. Everywhere, of course, except the church. And the great German scholar Rudolf Karl Bultmann and his new literary critical school of it's a German word, Formgeschichte, it's form criticism is what it means, effectively shut down inquiry into the historical Jesus with his memorable 1926 statement, I do indeed think that we know nothing concerning the life and personality of Jesus, since the early Christian sources show no interest in either, or, moreover, fragmentary and often legendary and other sources about Jesus do not exist. End quote. And this position that the historical Jesus is beyond the scope of rational inquiry was taken for granted in 1927 by philosopher Bertrand Russell in his treatise, Why I Am Not a Christian. He said, historically, it's quite doubtful whether Christ ever existed at all. And if he did, we do not know anything about him, so that I am not concerned with the historical question, which is a very difficult one. So this is the form of thinking that was taking place about the actual historical existence of Jesus. And so in response to this apparent dead-end research into the historical Jesus led two distinct directions. The first was a continued emphasis on comparative mythology, wherein the historical Jesus was ignored in favor of the interpretation of the mythos and its importance for understanding the human condition. This was the direction which gained prominence through the writings of Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung, Joseph Campbell, Mircea Eliade, and Sir James George Fraser. And the second was a renewed interest in discovering the historical Jesus by identifying and removing all traces of mythology, which focused on identifying dissimilar elements in the Christ movement that might have originated with a historical founder. So these were kind of the key paths, the two key paths that studiers and researchers of the historical Jesus took. And now, once again, I'm going to state for the record, for those of you who are maybe coming in a little later, that this is stuff that, if it challenges your faith, that's okay. If you're a person of faith and you know it's real, nothing's going to move you. But it's good to know that these things exist and these researches and these studies exist. Because if you put your faith in this and yet there is absolutely no historical data to back it up, you're ending up saying the only reason I believe this at all is by faith. And then you're saying that the God of the universe, the creator, the originator, all of this is incapable of creating a line of history, a thread of history, to prove that the Son of God ever really existed. And so it all becomes a thing of faith. And Brianna's participation in this conversation is Jack Daniels, Fireball, Jameson, Strawberry Lemonade Vodka, Svedka, Phillips, Strawberry Rum, Black Cherry Rum, Wine times 12, LOL, Captain, Amaretto, Gin, Jägermeister, Bacardi, Bud Light, Scotch, and Brandy. And there you have it. That is Brianna's drinking list. So now you know a bit more about our neighbors. So Dave asks, which of the 7 seals was Pestilence? 5? I don't know. Off the top of my head, Dave. I would have to look that up. Matt Finn says, now you're talking, bro, but he's probably not talking to me by the looks of the conversation. Elderberry says, hey, put you in the field pulling weeds. I hit the wrong one. Pulling weeds, girl. That must be Brianna he's talking to. John says he's on his way with Jack Daniels and Fireball. All right. Oh, and the rest, the other list you put up there, Brianna, that's the other stuff you're bringing along. So the 4th seal is the pale horse, says Matt Finn, and represents famine and plague. What are you, Matthew Sainsbury, tonight? Matt Finn? I'm just kidding. We love you, Matthew Sainsbury. So I don't know what you're all thinking about this type of stuff, but this is what's out there. This is what is historically out there about the historical Jesus. And so now we get into the mythology, the archetypes, the subconscious of all of this. James George Fraser's The Golden Bough, or Bow, B-O-U-G-H. It's a study in magic and religion, and I've got that book that was given to me. It was first published in 1890, scandalized Europe by equating the story of Jesus Christ with mythologies from more primitive and ancient peoples, and arguing that all mythological heroes that die and come back are really vegetation gods representing the changing seasons. The Golden Bough had a major influence on anthropology and many of the poets and authors of the 20th century, and invited the interpretation of mythology and religion as allegories. Now, these are the things that, if you think at all about what you say you believe and you start digging into this, these are the things that start to make your mind go, man, what if that's true? What if I only believe this by faith and this other stuff is right? Fraser was an early piece of a movement toward the appreciation and universalism of humanity, humanism. And with the ongoing synthesis and comparisons between different religious and mythological traditions, it became really clear to many people that human beings, rather than gods, were responsible for the creation of their own myths. Moreover, that the similarities between these stories reflected some as yet unknown common link between all humans. And the study of mythology became seen as a way to access the raw, original, subconscious desires, the motivations of mankind. And in the late 1890s, Sigmund Freud, a cigar is just a cigar, he interpreted mythology as a result of repressed sexual desires. That's what his interpretation of mythology was. A series of stories about repressed sexual desires. For example, Sophocles, the classic myth of Oedipus Rex, the king, was considered by Freud to be incestuous in nature. Remember the story where Oedipus, he's gone for years, he comes back, he never knew his mother, and he ends up falling in love with this woman, an older woman, and she ends up, they get married, they have sex, and all them finds out it's his mom. He jabs his eyes out with knitting needles. That's what we know of the Oedipus story. But Freud, he was considered by Freud to be incestuous in nature, and to support his claim that all men have a subconscious desire to sleep with their moms and to kill their fathers, which is what Oedipus did in the story as well. And it was subconscious because he didn't know it was his mom and dad. So Freud's studies have become so widely appreciated that few people have not heard of the Oedipal complex. The Oedipus, O-E-D-I-P-A-L, the Oedipal complex, which Freud explains in his work, The Interpretation of Dreams. Freud said this: his destiny moves us only because it might have been ours, because the oracle laid the same curse upon us before our birth as upon him. It is the fate of all of us, perhaps, to direct our first sexual impulse towards our mothers, and our first hatred and our first murderous wish against our fathers. Our dreams convince us that this is so. That's Sigmund Freud for you. And so it has to be pointed out here, however, that Freud's thought is rooted in the assumption that dreams and mythology are productions of the subconscious mind, and that the subconscious motivations are universal. Everybody's got the same thing. There may be truth to a certain degree in Freud's theories, but there's also some sensational claims that are not adequately supported. Critics of Freud have christened Freudian analysis the find the penis, quote unquote, game. Find the penis game. That's how they encapsulated their criticism of Freud's work. Find the penis game. Trying to read Harry Potter, for example, along Freudian lines is both possible and ultimately unsatisfying. In Harry Potter's Oedipal Issues, a book published in 2001, Kelly Noel Smith explains this. Given that it is every child's fantasy to remove by death his or her father, to enjoy exclusive possession of his or her mother, and inversely to eliminate one's mother to take her place with one's father, the reader of Harry Potter is able to indulge in wish fulfillment of the most basic fantasies without the grief which one would ordinarily attach to them. We know at the conscious level that the story is not true. Unconsciously, the deaths of Harry's parents represent a wonderful fulfillment of Oedipal fantasies. There you go. It's in my pants, I think, said Field Guy. There you go. Matt Finn, by the way, said, I'm pretty convinced the shroud is authentic and the garden tomb is the site of Jesus' final act. Maybe so. The shroud, we've talked about that. I want to get Barry Schwartz on this show. I've had him on other incarnations of this show over the last 10, 12 years. And he's the man who founded Shroud.com. Go take a look at his site. It's a very technical site. But he was the man, I mentioned him before. He was a JPL. He worked with JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratories. And he was a photographer. And he went along in 1978 to Italy with a crew from Jet Propulsion Laboratories on invitation of the Vatican to do an examination of the Shroud of Turin. And the first thing that Barry Schwartz said, well, he said, go to Italy to shoot pictures of the Shroud? Hell yeah. He says, 15 minutes of work and a vacation in Italy. I'll go. And he said the one thing he noticed in the first 5 minutes he was looking at the Shroud and setting up to take photography, he says, was that there was no way that the Shroud was a faked image. All the criticisms that, oh, it was hand-painted, or it was this, or it was that, or it was the other thing. He gave, now I've got my numbers are probably off here because I'm doing it from memory, but when you add here pigment to linen, pigment has to sink into the linen like 17 microns in order for it to adhere to linen. What he found in his examinations, after doing the photography and all the stuff they did, the image on the Shroud isn't anywhere near 17 microns. It's like 3 or 4 microns deep. It's not a pigment that's been adhered to the canvas. He said, the first thing I knew is, I don't know what this is. I don't know if it's Jesus. He says, but I can tell you what, it's not a fake. And he has spent 40 years now building this, his whole case about the Shroud. And to me, that's very interesting stuff. I want to get him on and do an interview where we talk about some of this basic stuff for you guys. Barry Schwartz. And so we'll see if we can get him on. And Matt Finn says, the fact we have such a hard time explaining how and replicating the event that Fabric recorded is convincing enough. Now, the big question, and Barry said, now Barry's a Jewish man. He says, I couldn't tell you if this was Jesus. He says, but I can tell you this. There is no scientific method that exists that could have put that image on that Shroud the way you see it. And he did speak, by the way, for those of you who are critics or skeptics, They had done DNA analysis and carbon dating and all of that of the shroud. Well, when they did the carbon dating, you have to burn a little piece of the thing. Well, they weren't going to let you cut a piece out of it, so they let them cut pieces from the edge of the shroud. And they said, oh, this only dates back to the 14th or the 15th century AD. Way too late for the time of Jesus. What they didn't think of at the beginning was they're picking up all the DNA. The shroud had only been handled for centuries by priests folding it from where? The edges. What gets all over the edges? Their DNA. So they were able to take some fibers from the center of the shroud, and they found that it dates back 2,000 years. They find pollens embedded in the fabric from the Middle East. They find the blood stains on it. Now, there's not enough blood there to do DNA of the blood, but that it's actual blood. The image, and you've seen how they've done the 3D processing of the image. They say the face looks funny and flat because the shroud was laid on a face, and it tinted at the middle with the nose and the chin and things like that. And it falls back like a tent across the face. But now you see it flat, and that's all spread out. And so when they reconstructed the image mathematically and digitally, accounting for the angles and so on, that's where you get the face on the shroud. That is astounding. So he said he doesn't know what it was, but he believed that it was, and that's a little sidetrack we had there on the Shroud of Turin. But he was saying the one thing he found, he believes it was a miraculous event. Whatever caused it. And this is a scientist, this photographer, JPL guy. A Jew on top of that. So his conclusions are that. His basic. Now, I want to get him on to talk about that. Dave Potter agrees with that. Yeah, I think the shroud is something miraculous. What it is, who it is exactly, I don't know. Is it the power of the risen Christ, the moment of resurrection that made that image? We don't know. So it's an interesting thing, and I think worth a show on that all by itself. So, in talking about Freud here, let's move on. Like many of his peers, it was Carl Jung who later argued that the human psyche, and he was a peer of Freud, the human psyche is by nature religious, he said, and that mythology, religions, dreams, art, philosophy can be used to explore the unconscious. Myths, said Jung, are original revelations of the pre-consciousness psyche, the pre-conscious psyche, involuntary statements about the unconscious psyche happenings, and anything but allegories of physical process. So like many of the peers of Freud at the time, and of Jung's interest into comparative mythology greatly influenced his work. As a student of Freud, his early position was that myth originates and functions to satisfy the psychological need for contact with the unconscious. And he was staunchly committed to independent inventions of myth and asserted that there's no evidence and indeed no possibility of contact among all of the societies with similar myths. So based on the similarities between various world traditions and the presumed impossibility of contact, Jung came up with the concepts of the collective unconsciousness and the psychological archetypes. In other words, since many cultures use the symbol of a dying and resurrecting savior figure, and since these cultures didn't share the symbol with each other, it must have come out of universal subconscious forces. So Jung argued that Christianity, although once vital, stopped interpreting its myths, and so stopped being relevant to modern people. Belief, he said, is no adequate substitute for inner experience, and where this is absent, Even strong faith, which came miraculously as a gift of grace, may depart equally miraculously. And he noted that the conflicts between the claim of a historical Jesus and comparative mythology, Jung reasoned this. He said, if the statement that Christ rose from the dead is to be understood not literally but symbolically, then it's capable of various interpretations that do not conflict with knowledge and do not impair the meaning of the statement. So according to the prominent Jungian Mircea Eliade, all myths are religious myths, except for modern myths, which might be secular. Eliade also continues the Jungian idea that you can't go from sacred to profane. In other words, it's possible for humans to create religious myths, sacred stories, based on mundane experience, that's the profane, but not the other way around. You can't go from the profane to the sacred. But and you can't do it the other way around. Mythologist Joseph Campbell, one of my favorite authors on this topic, continued this emphasis, even subjugating the historical to the mythic. In The Hero with a Thousand Faces, we've mentioned that book. He wrote that in 1949. His primary purpose was to explore the similarities between Eastern and Western religions. And later in his 4-volume series of books, The Masks of God, which he wrote from 1959 to 1968, Campbell tried to summarize the main spiritual threads common throughout the world while examining their local manifestations. He made it clear that it's the stories themselves that are important, not whether or not the stories have historical basis. Campbell said this, we may doubt whether such a scene ever actually took place, but that would not help us any, for we're concerned at present with problems of symbolism, not of historicity. We do not particularly care whether Rip Van Winkle, Kamar al-Zaman, or Jesus Christ ever actually lived. Their stories are what concern us, and these stories are so widely distributed over the world, attached to various heroes in various lands, that the question of whether this or that local character of the universal theme, the question of whether, sorry, I repeated the line, that question of whether this or that local character of the universal theme may or may not have been an historical living man, can be of only secondary moment. The stressing of this historical element will only lead to confusion. It will simply obfuscate the picture message. So Joseph Campbell, he represented mythological studies at its most matured. However, by the continuing in the tradition of Freud and Jung, he sought only the universal aspects of humanity, which gave rise to specific mythological symbols. And it was not interested in finding any shared external source for these symbols. It was Christian apologist C.S. Lewis reflects many of the humanistic tendencies and shifts Christianity went through in the middle of the 20th century. During the rise of the modernist heresy, much of the Christian thought and writing involved neo-scholasticism and biblical literacy, along with the adamant refusal of the studies mentioned above about Freud and Jung and Campbell. And in the 1950s, however, under humanist theologians like Karl Rahner and John Courtney Murray, Christian theology began its turn toward tolerance, inclusion, and interfaith dialogue. The Second Vatican Council, which was 1962, when I was 2 years old. It's a record of these changes, although the Catholic Church has since moved back to a much more conservative position. So an inspired theologian, C.S. Lewis, accepts the universal mythology of Jung or Campbell and models a very modern or liberal Christianity, one which could adapt or accept the mythical nature of the Gospels without being threatened by it. His conclusion is that all other figures who are similar to Jesus Christ were legends, stemming from the imagination, and that Jesus Christ was the same story, but as an historical reality. He said this, C.S. Lewis, "The heart of Christianity is a myth, which is also a fact. The old myth of the dying God, without ceasing to be myth, comes down from the heaven of legend and imagination to the earth of history. It happens at a particular date in a particular place, followed by definable historical consequences. We pass from a Balder or an Osiris dying nobody knows when or where to a historical person crucified in all its order under Pontius Pilate. So by becoming fact, it doesn't cease to be myth, and that's the miracle. God is more than God, small g, capital G. God is more than God, small g, not less. Christ is more than Balder, not less. We must not be ashamed of the mystical radiance resting on our theology. We must not be nervous about the parallels and the pagan Christs. They ought to be there. It would be a stumbling block if they weren't. We must not, in false spirituality, withhold our imaginative welcome." Those are the words of C.S. Lewis, who, of course, wrote the Chronicles of Narnia. Now, Lewis's hypothesis, however, it's based on the assumption that there's a great deal of evidence for the historical Jesus. It is all in order, he said. If Jesus existed, then similarities to mythology are simply irrelevant, he said. Thus, the similarities between Jesus and other mythological figures aren't threatening to Christianity at all. But only as long as the evidence for the historical Jesus is strong enough to silence our incredulity that a historical person should have so much in common with mythology. One limit of the focus on psychological undercurrents of the universal mythology is that although popularizing the similarities between various mythological traditions, it also chained the subject into the fixed, limited historical period of the movement. So, consequently, the rich field of comparative mythology research is unfortunately seen as dated or only relevant for psychology majors studying this stuff. And next time we talk about this, which is going to be Monday of next week, we're going to talk about the criteria of double dissimilarity. And I'll tell you what that means. Not tonight, but when we get to it. So, criteria of double dissimilarity. And so that's what we'll hit next time on this topic. So you can see here, folks, you start breaking down all the stories of similar messianic figures, and you can see that there is a huge field of research that rose up, not because somebody was trying to disprove it, but because somebody noticed that there is so much of this and we need to research this. We don't know if Jesus really existed. We don't know if he did or didn't. And they wanted to find out. So this is all within this study on Jesus, Potter, Harry, Christ. The similarities between these modern myth and ancient mythical figures. So, there you go. Matt Finn says, Disney knows how to create a new religion. That's a fact. Ain't that the truth? Dave Potter, I think this is what is going on. 1,000 years from now, people will believe Luke Skywalker was real and part of a Jedi religion. So there is a new religion that was formed on Jedi. So by people. That's an old quote of yours. Sorry about that. I agree with you, Matt, says Dave Potter. So there you go, folks. That's all the stuff I'm going to present for tonight. By the way, Matt Finn says, I believe some biblical artifacts have been hidden from us, to be honest. I think you're right. I think they've found the Ark of the Covenant. I think that exists somewhere. I heard back in my college days in the late 70s that they had found the Ark of the Covenant and that it is stored. It's in Israel. It's in Jerusalem, as a matter of fact. Hidden away in caverns beneath the Temple Mount. And so it's very interesting stuff. I would love to see it. Hey, Brianna. Yeah, Brianna already put it up there. So I think that I believe Ron Wyatt found it, said Matt Finn. Ron Wyatt, he gets a lot of criticism, but he was also the one that climbed Mount Ararat and said he found Noah's Ark. Ron Wyatt, isn't he the one that he believes that Mount Sinai isn't in the Sinai Peninsula, but across the Sinai, the Gulf of Omar, over into Saudi Arabia, on the not the shores, but just slightly inland on Saudi Arabia. He thinks he's found the site. And there's all kinds of hieroglyphs with Paleo-Hebrew, hieroglyphs with what would be the calf goddess of Egypt. It's got the big split rock. It's got a mountain that's black from about 2/3 up to the peak. All of these kinds of things. It's very interesting stuff. We should look into some of that Ron Wyatt stuff. So anyway, there we go, folks. I want to thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for giving me your time. If you're not a member of this channel, click on the join button down below and become a member. And you know what I'm going to do? I've got a couple of books that we'll do some giveaways on. And over the weekend, maybe on Sunday, we'll announce a little contest for all of you listeners. Probably give away a copy of Herodotus. Probably give away a copy of The Hero with 1,000 Faces by Joseph Campbell. I can give away some of my books, The Nephilim and the Reptilians. And there's a couple of other things in there. Maybe we'll run a little contest and see what we can do with that. Let me think about the terms of that contest. Because I think some of these books, I keep telling you guys that there are great books out there you should pick up and read. Maybe we'll find a way for you to win some of them here, right here on this radio show. And so that's it. Scott Allen Forks. That makes me think of Forky. My kids were pressing me for toys the other day. We were at the store and I said, no, let's just go home and make Forky. I'll make Forky for you. No, we don't want Forky. So anyway. All right, guys, you know what? You have a good night. I'll see you again here. Tomorrow's your day off. And then on Sunday, we'll meet right back here at 9 a.m. on Sunday morning, Central Standard Time, 10 a.m. out east, 7 a.m. out west, and probably between 7 and 9 o'clock over in Australia that evening. And, of course, 6 hours later in Great Britain. And so those of you who do listen from Great Britain, there are 6 hours ahead of us. It's already 4 a.m. there. And so we lost a listener from Great Britain. We said they didn't ever want to come back to the show because of ill treatment or something they said they were getting in the chat room. I didn't see it, but I'll pass that all on to you. Be good to people in the chat room. Be good to people in life. And maybe we'll coax this person to come back. And so other than that, that was for free. That just popped into my head. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for continuing to be here. If you like this show, pass it on. And get some people to come in and listen if you think it's a show worth listening to or viewing, with my family interruptions and everything. Within 2 weeks, we're going to be in the new studio, which will be nice. And that's all I got. So you know what? Live long and prosper.
Are you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff, and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAlanRoberts.com. That's Scott with 2 T's, AlanRoberts.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hire my dad, so he can take me to Disneyland.
You're listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent Talk.